Hello and welcome into the Sorare Data Show. I am Andrew Lairdinho. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare. Joined today by a very, very, very special guest, an old friend of mine who was one of the first people I worked with at Sorare Data. Pap is here. Some of you may know him as Beta Tester 2. Some as Sorare. Do you pronounce it SorarePITTI, or do you actually say the letters out?
It's a good question. I never actually thought about it. I always wrote it or read it, but I never said it. So, yeah, I think it works. But hey, hi everyone. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, Pap, you were one of the earliest Sorare users. You were also one of the earliest Sorare Data. I don't know if you were. I wouldn't call you an employee, but you were the product owner for football before we finally had to get rid of you and replace you with Vita here, who's saying hello. What have you been up to?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's true. It's been a while. I've been a bit further away from Sorare and everything. I've been very involved or very close for the early years from 2019 to well, there's been two stages. First, 2019 to 2020, like the first 18 months, I'd say. And when Maxime started very seriously to work very seriously on Sorare data, I helped the way I could, even though it's not my my area of expertise. My background is more finance, but I mean, I love Sorare. I found it really cool that Maxime was trying to build a product around it, and I really believe there was a utility for it. So that's why after 18 months around Sorare, I kind of focused on SD for another 18 months. And well, that's basically the last time we talked in November in 2022 in Belgium. And, and since then, I've been not very far from Sorare, but I've not been as involved and as close, to be honest. So, yeah, that's also a reason to jump on this podcast with you. I mean, I'm very, very happy to have the opportunity to catch up, obviously. But I think you also have many questions on what's to come for the future, because I may have missed some updates in the last 12 months and important ones, I think, in the last 6 months.
So, yeah, no, I'm thrilled you're here. Thank you to everybody for coming in. As Mike's calling you a literal blast from the past, and Paolo's saying I finally brought on my best guest ever, which Pap has been on the show before. So
yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's one I want to look back to, because we focused on the economics of Sorare. I think it's still very relevant. It's still very relevant. We pointed out the opportunity, the strengths and the weaknesses of the model. It's fair to say that it did not necessarily go in the right direction, but it's worth watching it again. I think I may do this later today to check what I've said 3 years ago now, and how it played out.
So I actually referenced the show that we did together yesterday, because one of the things that Sean and I talked about yesterday was essentially whether the game right now would be attractive to us if we didn't go through everything that we've gone through. So if we didn't experience the humongous highs and then the fairly drastic decline, whether we would look at the game today and say, is this a game we want to play? And I kind of tried to make the point also that a lot of what benefited Sorare in the past really had nothing to do with what Sorare did.
No.
And one of the piece points that I remember you said, which I think I've like clipped this and shared it as well, but the essentially Sorare missed out tremendously during that first, what we always call the Gary V boom in February 2021, where everyone was coming in for cards and they basically didn't increase auctions that much, and that there was seemed to be a lot of like lost revenue in that time, and it was kind of a mistake that they would never make again. But then we didn't really get that, like we haven't had a situation like that again. And so I was curious where you kind of see uh, Sorare's role, or what they can do in terms of trying to like return us to a time where everything was just going up.
Mhm.
Is there anything they can do?
And I mean, yeah, for most people on the platform, everything is always, I mean, at least between 2021 and 22, everything was going up, and it's the time where they had the most onboardings. I, I also remember in a period where there was literally no one on the platform, like a handful of people, maybe two, and we ended up in a situation where we all had the same cards. It was all only Belgium, I think, and West Ham. So these were the only licensed clubs, and we all had the same cards. And they were literally worthless at the end. And even in terms of competition, it was so strange. That was I think September, October 2019, and I think it's good to have had this experience because you can compare to what it's happening right now, where there's a lot of cards in the market. And I think it's still more fun now than it was in November 19. So the key difference is that at the time there are a lot of room to grow. They had a lot of licenses to win, and I mean there were only 20 users on the platform, so it could only go up. I think now it's a bit more challenging to find growth, but it doesn't mean that you cannot you know give fun or provide some fun for your users. And I mean, there are obviously negative things to say about the last 18 months, I think. But there is one key positive, is that they seem to have refocused on their users, and there was a big, in my opinion, at least a big an alignment between their interest and the users' interests. That was early this year, I think, when they changed the gameplay. I mean, everyone is hurt because you don't win or earn as much as before, but it's more sustainable, and at the end of the day, you want Sorare to be a going concern, to be sustainable. And as I said to you, or maybe to someone else, I also want to discuss what's to come for the next 5 years, not only the last 5 years, because I can tell you stories about the last 5 years, but I would love to see Sorare thrive for another 2, 3, 5 years. And I'm sad to see people leaving the platform, individuals, but also people in the ecosystem. You've seen platforms closing down. That's not a good sign. Even if I did not use them, it's not a good sign to see people stopping podcasts and platforms stopping. So yeah, that's the one I'm not so happy about these days. I don't really care about the price of the cars. It's more the health of the ecosystem itself.
That is something that we talked about kind of early on in with Sorare data was what was the realistic size of an ecosystem of companies that were based on Sorare and not necessarily. Obviously, Sorare has to continue to exist and ideally thrive for kind of third-party sites to exist as well. And I mean, that was kind of the big question for Sorare data was like, is there enough of an audience of users to build a business around helping people get better at, at playing the game or buying cards or whatever it is. And that I don't think that there is enough, or that's not fair to say enough, but I don't think people appreciate as much how many other companies can exist based on this platform. And yeah, it does seem like they're moving. It seems like the number of companies or podcasts or Patreons is consolidating. Well, I want to say consolidating, but it's really just shrinking because they're not really being absorbed at all. Do you think that has a chance to change in the future?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, when there was money everywhere, obviously you'd see companies popping up, and not even structured companies, just like projects being making money suddenly, and it was clear that it would not stay like this for forever. At the end of the day, it's just to go back to what I said earlier about Sorare refocusing on their users. I think it's the same for everyone in the ecosystem. Do you bring value? Do you create value for your users? And I think as far as data is concerned, I save so much time. I mean, I literally wouldn't play Sorare if it wasn't for Sorare data. And I think that's also why I was interested in the project in the first place, is that I've always been time constrained, and it's still the reason why I'm sometimes frustrated at Sorare itself. It's just like it takes so much time, and clearly Sorare data is creating value for me as a user. And I suspect that there are many other companies or projects in the ecosystem that bring value, and therefore they can make money that makes sense. Yeah.
So speaking of the if you hit export button one day, maybe. How about this from Scosmo? Could you not argue the ecosystem of third-party sites is dictated by the value of cards? If the cards and the rewards are minimal now, the value add of third-party sites is so much lower, and people are reluctant to pay for those services.
I agree. I mean, yes, and yes. There's nothing to argue about this. And if you want to survive as a third-party service provider, you just need to create more value. So all else equal, if let's take the example of Sorare data. In the past, I like one game week was sufficient to pay for the whole subscription. That was crazy. There was a good thing, these days it's not one game week, but do I think it's still worth the value? Yes, 100%. So it's all relative. You'll still find some services that are very valuable to you, and it's just worth it.
I'm thinking back, there was a time where we told people that all you had to do was score 250 points in All-Star Rare once, and you could get us a pro membership for an entire year.
Yeah, I watched it. I looked at my my stats before the show. The return has been going down, but yeah, I should not. If there is one person on this platform that should not complain, is me. So I don't care. I just try to enjoy Sorare. It's not easy because it takes a lot of time, and also I've been so involved in the past that at one point I just could not even watch football anymore. I just had to stop everything, and yeah, so it's weird weird relationship I have with this platform. A friend of mine who joined recently or in the last 18 months the platform, when he planned to join, I walked him through how it works and everything. At the time I was still relatively close, and he told me that I had a bittersweet relationship with Sorare. And I think yeah, I've not forgotten that, and I think it's it's true. But it's also why it works for users. They are engaged, and the fact that there is this bittersweet feeling sometimes, it's the proof that it still works. If you could just park it and forget about it, I mean, the platform would be dead.
Well, I guess speaking of not just parking it, obviously they announced these new gameplay changes. We've been doing it for, has it even been 2 months yet? Feels like an eternity. But Maxime and I did a show probably a year ago now, maybe not that long. Oh, it might have been that long. Essentially talking about Sorare sustainability, and we compared it to DraftKings Rainmakers that required new season cards to win cash, and everyone said we were crazy and that they would never do that. And so that's what we have now on Sorare, that they have these specific cash competitions. Would what has come out, was that in your idea of what could happen with Sorare 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, that they would end up having competitions like this?
Yeah. Had I had a discussion in the really early days of Sorare. I mean, it's not a secret that at the time I was still relatively close to Nicolas, at least, so we discussed it at the time. And I think there was always this idea, from my perspective, that there would need to move away from true ownership at one point, which could take several forms. I think at the time, and I was wrong, I thought they would probably, I thought it would be difficult for them to scale with their technology. And they have moved away from pure Ethereum blockchain, but they've kind of found a good balance, I think. It probably does not meet the expectation of the hardcore crypto enthusiasts, but I think it works, and it really solved the problems that they had in 2021 at like February, March 2021, just before the Gary spike. It was really difficult. So they really solved this scaling problem. I think another aspect of moving away from the own your game or true ownership is what you described, like forcing people to buy new cards all the time. This by itself does not contradict true ownership, but the problem is that the value of your old cards decreases, and also there is always more and more and more cards on the market, and they also find ways to how to say this nicely, to have, you know, to preempt the market. It's easier for them to sell than for users on the secondary market, and that also undermines a little bit the true ownership story. That was a long way to answer the question, but yeah, that was always somewhere in my mind that an evolution was needed, and I think I've said it at the beginning. I'd say it again. I think it's important that there is this alignment between their economic interest and the users. Yeah, for the future. And I think looking at the broader market, it's interesting that you compare it to rainmakers. There are not so many players in that market that made it, and maybe it's too early to say that they made it actually, but I don't even know where Ultimate Champion is at the moment. I don't know. I used to see some post on Twitter. I don't see anything anymore. I don't know. So and generally, and that's my experience from my real job, it's not so healthy when you have only one player in the market. I think it's too much competition is obviously not something you want, but two or three is kind of healthy oligopoly, and personally it does not worry me, but I don't find it great that no one else managed to emerge in this market next to them.
Do you think a lot of it is just license exclusivity, and at some point,
it needs to be put to their credit, and there is one strength they've always had. Strength was on the commercial side, not necessarily with their users, but certainly with their suppliers, i.e. the licensors. I think they've always been very good at this, and maybe this is what prevented other players to emerge. I thought Ultimate Champion, that's the name, Ultimate Champions, would be a challenger. Maybe they are, but I'm not aware of them, you know, doing anything crazy good, at least.
Right. It's not, however good it is, and I can't speak to Ultimate Champions either, but it's basically, it's not so good that the response is so loud that it has reached us. And so I suppose that's the issue. Going back to the true ownership thing, are you surprised at how there's almost no reference at all now to Ethereum or blockchain technology or NFTs for Sorare, or did you think that was always the path?
Yeah, that was always the path. It's the only path. I think they penetrated their core market very quickly, and I think they had a really good product. But yeah, I think also since 2022, this broader ecosystem, crypto ecosystem, had faced like massive headwinds. So I mean, relatively speaking, Sorare did really well. I think they did so well that they, in my opinion, they did not really see the wall coming closer and closer. I think from like a market dynamic perspective, there were some red flags between May and August 2022. And they were still very, very, very confident in the interview, which makes sense also when you do external communication, but it also seemed that they did not really see the wall coming. I sold a big part of my gallery in August 22, and it was actually probably the best move I've made on Sorare, because at the time the ETH was low and prices were high, so overall it worked out pretty well. But I was looking at the stats, at my stats now, and I have 100 cards more today than I had in 2022 before I sold them. So I mean, I'm not so involved, but I somehow keep winning cards. Yeah.
I would say that Sorare had roughly 4 billion reasons why they didn't see the wall coming. But it does feel like that, maybe that gave them, I don't want to say the ability to ignore some issues that were coming up, but it at least allowed them to say, this is working. If it didn't work, we wouldn't have all this money that we just raised, which isn't usually a perfect barometer of success. But
but even I think not only did they have the money because they were really successful at fundraising, and I think that's also a strength.
Yeah.
There is a lot to put to their credit on the licenses side, on the fundraising side, and gave them a lot of very long runway. So that's nice. But also the phasing of the drop, because on all the crypto markets, the drop started around March, April 2022. And I remember very well the podcast at the time that the Sorare team were doing. I say, well, I mean, we are looking at the prices. They don't decrease. They don't fall. We monitor it, and it's still very, very strong. And that's true. It kept increasing until August, and then it kind of crashed. But
yeah. So,
but I think before we move on the prices, I think it's good in a certain. It's obviously not good for all those who joined in 2021, and a lot of my friends got burnt, to be honest. So I'm happy that it was not a big. They could afford it, so that's fine. But the platform now looks like what it was in 2019, where everything was cheap. So if you wanted to buy a player just for a game week, you could. And I mean, I know people do that now, and I think it's a better model overall. If it's like beer money that you spend rather than life savings that you would lose.
So there's I would say it's a minority, but there is a popular kind of feeling that Sorare in the end, and I don't think that they could have made this decision back then, but that they shouldn't have introduced limiteds. And I think that for users back then, I think it's kind of lost at how expensive it was to play the game at the very entry level.
Yeah.
And limiteds were meant to solve that. But the success of the licensing team since then, as we have just so many more teams on the platform and there's for so many more cards, it just felt like the easy way to put blame was, oh, limiteds were the problem. Do you think that they should have held back?
I never thought about that, but now that you mention it, I kind of I remember some of my friends who started when was it? January 21. So there were no limited. Limited started in August, I think,
August.
21.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they never bought into limited. But I can tell you because they were monitoring and telling me how much money they were putting in the game. And it was tens of thousands, like to enter the game and play seriously. So that was never going to work out. It's like, yeah. And I think limited was a good way to, yeah, to provide an entry point, like for at least this kind of game. And I've been also at the opposite of the spectrum because I've invested in Unix early on, which have also a very specific market, price profile. At the end of the day, they needed to have this offering for everyone, and there was no other choice but to offer limited, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that we either forget. I think it's most people just forget is just how expensive it was to play this game, and you weren't even paying a lot to then get the players that you knew. You were still playing a lot for. Somebody mentioned it. You get a common card in 4 J League nobodies, and then that was the way you'd play for $1,000, and it's just not a very sustainable.
Yeah, I
It's not
think
a sustainable platform for the user at that point.
yeah, the flip side of this, this lower scarcities is that very, very quickly there is a lot of cards on the market, and they cannot be absorbed. So you do that 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, and then you see that there will never be enough new users to absorb the cards, and this is what we see now. I was yeah. This is the reason. This is the one reason for the price dynamic. It's just like it's just going down. I was worried that we'll go to zero. I think they have found a kind of better gameplay, which means that there is a baseline that is not necessarily high, but it's not zero. And so yeah, there is like some financial value and a bit of fun. I really enjoy the capped division where you kind of have to gamble on the score. Are they going to stay, or are they going to? What is going to stay?
All cap modes are going. I will say that they keep saying they'll have special weeklies each week. So they've had previously, in fact, they have this week, there's a J League special weekly with a cap 270. And so I think capped will stay around. It won't necessarily stay in the same competition every game week, and the cap itself will probably stay. But I think getting rid of capped was essentially their solution to star cards not being priced as star cards, because we were all looking for guys with L15s of 48 instead of 58 and 68. And so they wanted those cards to be worth less.
Okay. I understand. Yeah. Although, yeah, I'm not sure what star cards are these days, but that's another that's another discussion.
Yeah. Well, let me see here. There was here we go. Skylar said, do you think that the limited and rares are basically a separate economy from super rares and uniques?
Yeah.
And how they should.
Definitely. I mean, and even uniques are so far apart. I mean, it's interesting because there were so few of them at the beginning that adding 1 season would stray to, and there were few users with Unix and also few cards. But as soon as you would start releasing 1, 2, 3 seasons, you would see the effects of what I described earlier, where like there are not enough users on the platform to absorb the volume. And Unix, after just 1 year, there was no market for them anymore. So they were already in this kind of dynamic where you would just focus on gameplay, try to find the right one, and grind for a year or two, which is what I've done. I think I've not bought a Unique in a long time, and I have a pretty terrible graveyard of Unix, but some of them are still. I would never sell them anyway. So that's my graveyard. Some fun ones, but yeah, I still some. I win some super rare sometimes, and the thresholds as well every now and then. Not so often. This is why I thought the cap mode would still make sense for them, because maybe I'm biased, but I miss them all the time, and I'm not frustrated at Sorare, I'm frustrated at myself, and that's why I thought it was a good model. But anyway, I think they found their. I hope they found a balance. We'll see. I think after summer. Yeah.
For those curious, PAP is now under BMON, but this is the graveyard he was referring to. There's some good cards in here.
Yeah, there are still very good ones. But they are many of them who don't play anymore. And I don't even know where they are. It's kind of Sometimes there is this Asian tournament, and I see one of these cards popping up again in the lineup builder. I was like, oh, I forgot about this one. It happens all the time. That's why the lineup builder is so valuable for me, because I can't track the cards, especially now that they are more tier 4, tier 5. It's really hard for me to know about them.
Skazmo said you should have sold him the Hoffman at the beginning of the season, but thank you for not.
Yeah, well, yeah. You should. It's not easy to sell cards. Everyone knows this, but it's not only about. I never negotiate. Like, I think I joked about it one day on Twitter, but I actually do this. I looked at the last price, and I halve it, and I put it on the market. And when I receive an offer, if I find time to log in, I accept the offer. So the real problem is the time it takes. I think that's the one issue I have in general with the Sorare platform as a whole, is the time it takes. And a lot of good ideas, but just like I don't have time. And when I was making, I don't know, $1,000 a week, it was worth spending that time. Now that I'm making $17, I don't spend that time.
It's funny that you bring up the time thing, because one of the pushbacks that I've seen about our hope that we could introduce some sort of export lineup button is, like, people responded to me and said, doing that means people will spend less time on Sorare, and Sorare don't want people spending less time on the site. They want people to spend more time on the site.
On this, I fundamentally disagree, because it makes sense to have this approach if if you are selling, if you are advertising on your platform, like and you are like inserting ads every now and there, and this is not what Sorare do. They just in my opinion, they should remove as much friction as they can. And I think there are other implications to what you described, just directly entering the lineups from the lineup builder to Sorare. I think I could see why it's not straightforward, even from a technical perspective. Should not be too difficult, but still I can see why they would be reluctant. I think there are some things you could do yourself. I think one of the things I would love to do would be to just to copy the name of the players from the lineup builder to paste them in the app, because I have these names and I have to type them one by one. I have 400 cards, and believe me, like entering the cap 2020, where you have to find the absolute lowest player, I have to scroll for a minute and a half, because it takes, like, it loads 10 cards and you wait another 10 cards and so yeah, just pasting the name would be helpful. But there are many areas where I lose interest because of the time it takes. There were two recent examples. The how did they call them? The so coins.
Mm-hmm.
So these, I very quickly got, I don't know, 500,000 of them, and I could buy stuff at 250. So it would literally take me 11 days to spend my coins. Or I could spend in one go 15,000, but I had to stop everything I had and log in at a specific time at like 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So it did not make sense. And even the level ups these days, I don't know how many I have, 50. And so one day I was like, okay, I'm gonna use them, and I did 3. So first of all, you need to find where it is, and then so you have your level up. Then you need to choose one player among 400. Then you apply the level up. So all this, it does not take extremely long, but it takes like 20-30 seconds. And you don't do this 50 times in a row. You do 3 and say, okay, well, that was a good idea, but not for me.
I think there was a game week recently where Sean, PSU fans 2, won 30 boxes, and just having to open up 30 boxes takes a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I just hand my phone to my daughter, and she's happy to see these colors and shining. I mean, it's a great animation. It's a great addition, but at the end of the day, the reason why I'm not enjoying it as much as I should, it's just that it's just a pain to use at the end of the day.
That brings up another topic I wanted to talk to you about, because we were saying how there are just so many cards now, but on the other side, there's still a very finite number of cards that they can reward. And so we have seen them introduce the boxes where we get level ups, and sometimes people win a jersey. How long has the conversation, and you didn't work at Sorare, but I feel like you had at least a little bit of a view of what they were thinking. How long has the conversation happened where they think we need to reward more than just cards?
I don't. I honestly don't know about. I honestly don't know about this. And you also need to put the. But I had one discussion with. I had one discussion with Sorare employee on that aspect a long time ago, when the price of cards was really high, after like the big spike of 2021, because there's kind of a virtuous cycle when price increases, because you reward cards that has an increasing value, so overall it lifts all boats. But at the same time, when it goes in the other direction, everything crashes. And one of the discussion was around distributing merch, and at the time, like the average card was much more expensive than a jersey. So I think it's not the same right now, and I would love to win a jersey one day. So I think it makes sense, and they also have these licensing agreements. So I know they have like ton of merch that then they should award. I think it's a really good idea also to, I don't know, do they award tickets for games as well in the boxes, or how does it work? No, okay. I think this is kind of thing they could use everything.
I don't believe that they have given out tickets in boxes. I'm fairly certain about that. But there also does seem to be this belief that they have tickets everywhere and lots of them, and that the idea that has been thrown around was using coins to redeem coins to get tickets. But I feel like they need to come up with a more beneficial reward system, because the cards, they're going to run out of cards for the number of users. And that's something I feel like we knew was going to happen, but every day it didn't happen. It was kind of like, okay, we don't need to deal with that yet. But now it's starting to feel like, while there are so many cards, there aren't that many card rewards. And so we have to find something else. And the in-season competitions that reward cash help with that slightly, until we get to August. And now all of the in-season new cards are now old cards, and it's just more people competing.
This is the one thing I really didn't like about when they started awarding DNP players, like at the end of last year. Or like, this one is a tier 2 because it's expensive. It's a 20-year-old goalkeeper, like very promising. It's a good reward, and like, but in a month from now you're going to introduce the new rule, meaning that this guy will never have utility, because it will start playing in 5 years, where there will be a rule saying that you cannot use cards before 2026, and then and then all this is for nothing. So that's the one aspect I really didn't like about the card, the way they allocated rewards that didn't play. But I think you're right. They just, there is a finite number of cards they can distribute, and a lot of them are not good cards.
I think the other byproduct that nobody really thought about until it happened, but the introduction of DNP rewards also meant that, because each tier of rewards is based on a percentage of the total reward population. So if the stars are the top 2.5% or top 5%, that's very different if you have 100 cards available versus 1,000 cards available. And so we saw cards that we never thought would be stars are stars, but Sorare had kind of the fallback of, well, they're in the top 5% or whatever the percentage is, so they are stars. And that we all wanted DNP rewards when we knew one big player was hurt and wasn't being rewarded. We wanted Kevin De Bruyne or Florian Wirtz. We didn't want the guys we had never heard of, but you can't do both, or you have to do both, excuse me. And so it's almost like we asked for it, they gave it to us, and we wanted to say never mind, and they said sorry, it's too late.
Yeah, how to put this? I don't enjoy so much the reward opening these days. Yeah, but I think at least I had a good run for a number of years, so I should not complain. I try to focus on the areas of the gameplay that suit me the most, and yeah, see how it sells. Yeah, but
Do you ever see an outcome where you prefer to compete for cash versus cards?
yeah, that's what I do now. As like 100%. I still win cards, and they are useful. I think they I managed to use them, and I can do one or two lineups in all divisions in season. So means with the current season's cards, which means that I win cards because I didn't buy any, and I start making, I'm winning some cash prizes every now and then. So yeah, I focus on that. Yeah, I do them in priority.
So what has to happen to convince you to buy a card?
I don't know. I think there is for me, the fundamental hurdle is time. Like it happens very often that I'm on my commute. I do 30 lineups, 35 lineups in the lineup builder, and then I start putting them on Sorare, and after 10, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna stop. I just can't. I mean, it's just so stupid to spend that much time doing this. So I think, yeah, almost every week I submit fewer lineups than I do in the lineup builder, and this has consequences because I'm putting myself in their shoes. You want your users to want to use their cards, because in that case they will want to retain them, and then they will not want to dump them on the market at any price. I think they really hurt themselves by just not trying to convince the users to hold on their cards. I mean, in a way they do, because it's so difficult to sell, but at the same time, I'm not going to add cards to my collection these days. If I had only 100, maybe I would buy more, but I have 400, and I don't even know who they are. So yeah, that's it's no, I don't. There's not enough fun. Just not enough fun for the time it takes. I mean, everyone spends time for activities where they don't make money. If it's fun enough, that's fine. Yeah, it's just I'm not dunking on Saw at all. I stick around, but try to understand. I admit I don't spend time reading the Medium post and everything. Again, it goes back to the time it takes. It's not straightforward. It takes time even to read the rules. it needs to be much more simple. And yeah, I don't know if I'm representative, but I mean I could spend that money if my friend also still played, they've all stopped playing, so that is also a big issue. Uh, and so yeah, that's not so much fun, to be honest.
Clement said, are you saying you'd buy more cards if you had a quick way to do your lineups? Say a combination of an export button and a do all my lineups button for me? Asking for a friend.
Yeah, well, yeah, anything that would make my life easier, you know. I literally cannot have more cards. It's a pain already. So I could spend some time, you know, hacking something to help me. I think you've done a terrific job with the lineup builder. When I was working for SD, I didn't think it was possible to do it, and not only you did it, but you did it incredibly well. So that's I mean that's great. I I wish it, there was just as much attention to detail on the Sorare side. Not that they don't pay attention to detail. Their platform is beautiful, but just in terms of productivity from a user's perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're just not spending. You have a finite amount of time to spend on Sorare, and
Yeah.
you're using it in just incredibly suboptimal, frustrating way. That's all.
And,
Like
I've
everybody
I've,
talks.
I've, I've even stopped putting my cards on the market last year. It's just like it would take me an hour and a half to put cards on the market, and so that I stopped that as well.
Well, they can't go down if you're not if you're not posting.
I always suspected that this may be some of the reason why it's so hard, and it's fair play.
Mike said this goes back to what you said earlier, that Sorare's desires and the user's desires are not aligned. Sorare want people on site as much as possible. Users only want to be there as little as they can. I think they're starting to align more than they were previously. But you kind of mentioned that in the last time you were on, was you kind of have to recognize that if there are two ways to purchase a card, Sorare has a very clear benefit on one and not the other. And it is just kind of a little bit of a battle between the two, that users have to feel like they can sell cards, but Sorare also need to sell cards to run their
I
company.
mean, my job was in was operating in very liquid market, and I've always been convinced, because of my work, that what you can't sell is worthless. So obviously there can be an emotional dimension, and when it's fun, it's okay. But if you can't sell it, it has no value. So yeah, that's why I think secondary market is important, some form of liquidity, because when I see cards, you know, the prices of cards where it's only blue dots. I don't know if it's still blue, by the way, on the charts, but meaning that it's only auctions. It means that this value, it is meaningless. So that was my that's always how I approached it. And cards do not need to have a value. I would love to play just spending €5 or $10 every now and then, and have fun. I can't add more cards to my collection.
Do you want to get flooded with offers for your cards?
Yeah, I receive some. When I do, what happens most of the time is that it takes me 48 hours to log in, and then they are all canceled. But yeah, every now and then I sell cards.
Fair enough. I've taken up about an hour of your time. Is there anything that you wanted to discuss that we haven't gotten to? I don't think we've helped you play the game any better today, but that's what Sorare
No,
Data's tools are for.
no, but no. At least I learned a couple of things. That's helpful. No, I don't think there is anything. Or if you really wanted to help me play with the lineup builder, you would organize the divisions the same way as Sorare do in their gaming arena. With all the champions together.
It should do
Limited,
that.
rare. Yeah, that would save me a good 5 minutes every Thursday, I think.
It should do that now.
Already?
It doesn't do it yet?
I don't know. I've not checked since yesterday. Maybe. Or maybe I need to download the new version.
If anybody hasn't, yeah, it's on the My Teams part is where that is. Yeah.
I'm always careful about this now because I don't know which version of the app I have, and I don't want to leak something. So I'm careful about it.
That should be there. Actually, I do want to. One last one. Rikuman brought this up. What do you think of Rivals?
I don't know. I try to avoid this as much as possible, and it's just not for me. It was never for me. I'm kind of too autistic in a way, not like in a pathological way, but still, I'm like, I don't play against or with other people, so that was not for me. And given you had to go through the process once, and I didn't want to do it for like 4 months. I was resisting, trying to avoid this pop-up all the time. It's been it's not been a good experience. I don't know anything about Rivals. I've done it because I was forced to, but I don't know.
You had to get
Does
rid
it
of
work? Does it work or not?
It depends what you mean by work.
I don't know. Do people enjoy it?
I think there are people who enjoy it, yes.
Okay.
I don't think it's a game for everyone. They announced recently they're going to start giving better rewards to it, but I don't know if there's a reasonable crossover between very active Sorare users and Rivals players.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they have to try anything. We should not blame them. We should actually encourage this. I mean, even from my perspective, I wouldn't mind if they told me today, every year in January we're going to change the gameplay entirely. That's our approach. Every year we overhaul everything. I think I would be comfortable with that. I don't care if they want to try something else. It's still better than just watching everything slowly collapsing. So and people get excited about new stuff. They talk about it for a month or two. Then they digest it. It's the new normal, and then they need to find something else. So yeah. I wouldn't mind if they changed more frequently. I mean, too frequently is a problem. But as soon as you stop looking at this as an investment and instead as fun, you can just change. It's just like, yeah, it may um, it may suddenly create value for certain players, and then next year it's gone.
I think that it's funny. The opposite reaction was I don't want to say popular when they announced the new changes, but I think there was this weird dual argument of they're changing too much while ignoring that what they had wasn't necessarily working well enough, and so they had to change it. But
no, I completely, I totally agree, and I totally understand. But at that specific point that I realized myself that actually I don't care. I was just losing interest, and for a while, it just like it was a good reason to go back to it to try to understand. It was a bit too much work to understand, but I don't actually do. It was it's not necessarily bad, you know, that they do this. And I remember when they, because I've witnessed all the changes they've ever made. So I I remember some big shifts. But you know, fun one was when they completely changed the scoring matrix. I think that was in 2020. Yeah, 2020, I think. And suddenly, like, it was Morioka at the time that went from being nobody to being the absolute goat of the game. Then he just disappeared again. But that you know that's a fun side effect of these changes, that you know random players have regained value for a while, and it should not stay. Obviously, there is no reason why they have value. So the next move is to change the gameplay again, so to adjust it back, and another weird player would have value. So that's also part of the fun, at least from my perspective.
feels dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, maybe, yeah. I always say I'm not a gambler, but maybe I am.
All right, then I'll stop us there. Thank you to everybody for coming. If you could please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Shout out to Quinny. Pap, it was fantastic to see you and to talk to
Yeah,
you
it was
again.
great to catch up. And yeah, thanks for inviting me.
I think this is going to be the start of you getting back to playing much more, and so we'll have to have you on in a little bit to so you can update everyone of how much time you're then spending on Sorare.
Yeah, well, you know, I have a bit more time these days, so maybe you'll see me more active.
You know what'll happen when you start seeing Pap start listing cards? That'll be the key. When you finally start listing cards again, we'll know.
Yeah, either I've built a bot, or I'm really and plan to leave, or I'm really back into it. It will be one or the other.
One or the other. We'll hope for one and hope the other doesn't happen. Anyway, Pap, thank you very much. And I'll talk to you around.
Thanks. Bye-bye.